What do you have to say to the simple question, are you public enemies or public defenders?
So I think, good evening and thank you so much for having us today. Maybe we should correct that line whether we are defenders or enemies. Now, Operation Dudula is the mouthpiece of ordinary South Africans who, are voiceless and have been, left behind for I can say for 30 years when we have been promised, justices and, a gravy train. We've been on the gravy train for the past 30 years and it's not happening. We've been fooled for the longest time, and Operation Dudula is that movement where South Africans feel very, comfortable in addressing these issues that are affecting them on a daily basis. And we shouldn't portray Operation Dudula as that vigilante group, or rather a group that's targeted by, there's a backlash from South Africans. If you look on social media platforms, I mean, we have most South Africans who are actually quite happy with the work that we are doing as Operation Dudula, because they can see the difference. In the past 5 years of its inception, we have been raising issues that no political party wants to talk about, and the burning issue, which is the immigration issues. Operation Dudula is the only political party that takes the government head on when it comes to these discussions of immigration. Yes, there are other political parties that talks about it, but who does action more than just talks?
You got the balance of 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. So yes, Operation Dudula shouldn't be portrayed as just that, a political party that focuses on immigration. I mean, there's a lot that we do. We also deal with housing. We are into labor. We also deal with issues, at an educational level, where we have issues at the basic education department, and service delivery. Now, all we are saying is that we have an influx of illegal foreigners in our country, and nobody is willing to address that. Not even the president of this country wants to talk about this burning issue. And fortunately, there is Operation Dudula, who happens to be the voice of the voiceless, and unapologetically so, we will be raising these concerns and making sure that our South Africans are placed first, because that's our motto, that we want South Africans to be placed first in South Africa and not anyone else.
The problem of xenophobia in South Africa is substantial. Even when we do not see large outbreaks of violence, we must remember that stigmatization against foreign nationals, hate crime against foreign nationals, and indeed even more low-level types of violence against foreign nationals are an ongoing problem in South Africa, even if it does not break out into the news, although thankfully you've brought this important issue to national attention.
Yeah, well, the conversation continues because there's still more questions than answers at this point, given the realities on the ground. I wonder, how could a legal victory for Kopanang set a precedence against systemic xenophobia in South Africa? But in the same breath, if we're even looking at the socio-political, economic conditions that are enabling this precedence, perhaps in relation to the systemic xenophobia in South Africa, what do you think is coming through to the fore as we're speaking?
So you've raised the issue of socioeconomic conditions and how they are driving xenophobia. So we need to look at two distinct phenomena. So one is violence, xenophobic violence. Now, xenophobic violence is associated with socioeconomic deprivation. The higher the deprivation, the greater the likelihood of violence. Negative attitudes or antipathy towards international migrants, that is not associated with deprivation. Rich people, poor people, black people, white people, all people, young people. This type of prejudice does not discriminate based on class. So we have to be quite clear that these are two so separate phenomena. And indeed, solving the problem of xenophobia means both addressing xenophobic violence, but also the underlying prejudice that lies at the heart of this type of hate crime.
Thank you for speaking to that and for setting that context, because if we're looking at how these conditions then enable the rise of populists and the hijacking of emotions as well. Some questioning the inaction from government versus the rights to civil movements being silenced as well. I mean, let's unpack that a little bit further, but also, why these organizations are being targeted versus systemic governance failures as well that are left unchallenged. Is that stretching it a bit too far? Tell us a little bit more.
Well, first we have to understand that the government does have a national action plan targeted at fighting xenophobia, as well as other forms of prejudice in South Africa, such as racism and racial intolerance. So there is an action plan dedicated to solving this problem. The question, of course, confronts us is, has enough resources been given to making sure this national action plan succeeds? What policies can we implement as a society which will help us tone down xenophobia in our country? We must remember that we are not the only society in the world that suffers from this problem. One only has to turn on the news to look at places like the United States to see that xenophobia is not just a South African problem, but a problem of many nations. Now, obviously, legal court challenges are very significant. The use of the courts to protect vulnerable minorities, vulnerable groups in our society, is one of the landmark victories of the South African Constitution, and we can feel a lot of pride that our legal system is protecting vulnerable groups in our society. But if we want to see real, meaningful systemic change, we need to confront public prejudice on this issue and find a way of reducing public prejudice as the National Action Plan says we should.
Well,
sorry.
Yes, I'm going to have to leave it there because, to your point about whether the judiciary can in fact help prevent, mob injustice and also just protect the vulnerable communities. I mean, this is really what we're also trying to ascertain through this and what the precedence is going to be set. But thank you for your time.